Oh, you smell that? That's the smell of freedom. Because you, ladies and gentlemen, are standing on the soil of the United States of America, the freest, greatest, and bestest country in the entire world. But, you know, past 8 years have been a little smelly, to say the least. It's about time someone took the reins of the presidency and made our country great again. That man's name is Donald J. Trump. And when he's not busy tearing down homeless shelters to build new casinos, or destroying wildlife areas for his own personal golf course, he's running what American history is going to proclaim as the greatest running joke of a campaign. But even though we might call it a joke today, it honestly really is no laughing matter. Real Clear Politics explains on January 4th of 2016 that Trump trumps the competition consistently, outperforming Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, and every single other member of the GOP field, time and time again. And with Fox News reporting just yesterday that Trump has refused to go onto the debate stage, instead holding a new event 3 miles away from the debate, it seems as if Trump is already dancing for victory when it comes to securing the bid for the presidency. But is this really all true? And if it is, it really begs the question, will Donald J. Trump actually win the Republican presidential nomination? And now I see some of you shaking your heads no, but honestly, I'm nodding my yes, and that's for 3 main reasons. First and foremost, let's take a look at the source of Trump's popularity. Before second, moving on to his poll numbers, and why his political momentum and ascension show no signs of slowing down. Before third and final, taking a look at the media, how they do all the advertising for Trump, and how that practically ensures his dominance, popularity, and relevance in the rapidly paced 2016 campaign season. But first and foremost, why is Trump so darn popular? Well, he appeals to a lot of conservatives. After all, he claims to be a champion of fiscal responsibility, bankrupting his casinos 4 separate times. He also claims to be a lifelong supporter of the American military, except that one time he bulldozed the veteran shelter for a new Trump casino. And let's not forget that he's always been a lifelong conservative, a proud member of the GOP, except in the 1990s when he registered as a Democrat. Or even earlier, back in 2008, when he not only voted for Hillary Clinton, but get this, donated $35,000 to her campaign. He's not just a hypocrite, he has a blurring lack of omission and a lack of consistency when it comes to his political platform. But we can joke all we want about it. There are some legitimate reasons why so many Americans are so desperate for a Trump presidency. According to ABC News, on October 15th of 2015, Trump's campaign is largely self-financed, meaning that he doesn't rely on money or influence from special interests or lobbyist groups, something that so few politicians are actually willing to do. In Fareed Zakaria's seminal book, The Future of Freedom, he claims that special interests have penetrated and permeated the political process, and lobbyist groups, from banking conglomerates to pharmaceutical corporations to advocacy groups like the NRA, the National Rifle Association, spend unlimited amounts of money and influence on candidates' campaigns. If you come up and say, well, I support gun control, we ought to restrict their use, the NRA will spend every last dime on its budget, putting you out of the game. And that's why a lot of politicians realize that special interests are very powerful. But not good old Donald Trump, who already uses the billions of dollars in his banking account to self-finance his campaign. In the words of my friend who's at his second year at Princeton, Donald Trump embodies the frustrated voices of millions of angry Americans, people who believe that politicians pay lip service, but nothing else. And what's more surprising than the fact that one of the smartest people I know fully endorses and supports Donald Trump is the fact that, to a certain degree, I actually have some respect for the man. It takes guts, and it certainly takes courage to stand up to crony capitalism and the top dogs at Wall Street. It's just that Bernie Sanders does it without being a jerk. But second, let's take a look at his poll numbers and why his political momentum and popularity show no signs of slowing down. Back in the summer of 2015, when Trump first announced his bid for the presidency, a lot of political experts said that it was just a summer fling. By the end of the year, nobody would even remember who Donald Trump was. Oh boy. 7 months later, and nothing has really changed. He's not only maintained, but he's actually grew his dominance and lead over Ted Cruz, who continues to play second fiddle to Donald's first. And meanwhile, Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina, who once saw their 1-month claim to political fame shrivel away in insignificance, Donald Trump still is in the lead, and he is still the front runner. In fact, it's come to the point where a lot of Republicans have realized that they only have 2 real bets: Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. But according to Fox News, on January 12th of 2016, every single poll showing Donald Trump edging out and beating Cruz and Rubio, whether it's in Iowa, New Hampshire, or even nationwide. But there's a very good reason why Cruz and Rubio keep on losing to Donald Trump, and that's because of something called the spoiler effect. In the Harvard Political Review, on October 18th of 2015, the spoiler effect essentially goes something like this. Donald Trump has a voter monopoly on his group of supporters. No matter what he says and no matter what he does, his voters are always there for him, which leaves Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz fighting for everything else. But because voters know that they have 2 legitimate options, Cruz or Rubio, they're split between the 2. As former American President Abraham Lincoln once pointed out, united we stand, but divided we fall. And divided the Republican Party is indeed. Fox News exclaims that if Rubio were to drop out, then his supporters would flock over to Ted Cruz, and then for sure, Ted Cruz would beat Donald Trump. But what ends up happening is that voters have to make a decision, and that decision ultimately splits up the vote, something that benefits Donald J. Trump. But third and final, let's take a look at the media and how they basically do all the advertising for Trump. I just recently adopted a puppy, and I wanted to name him Trump, because he won't stop barking. But let's face it, there's a real reason why dogs love to bark. It's because they want attention. And it really is the same with our good friend Donald Trump. The way he happens to get attention is by calling Mexicans criminals, and when he doesn't like fat pigs. It's rude and it's disgusting, and we all know it, but it sells, and the media knows that. According to the Washington Post, on December 18th of 2015, Donald Trump gets 10 times more coverage than the rest of the GOP field combined in cable ratings. Or the number of viewers that tune in a certain news segment exponentially spikes when, you guessed it, Donald Trump is featured in the media. People who love Trump love seeing Trump on the news. And even for the haters, and the skeptics, and the people who are on the sidelines, who don't really know what to think about Donald Trump, there is something morbidly fascinating watching his mouth contort into the next new shape that spells out some new way to insult an entire group of people. Honestly, it's gone to the point where he's beginning to mirror and out-edge every single other candidate. It's gone to the point where people like Rand Paul and Mike Huckabee are marginalized and never heard of again. It's gone to the point where Donald Trump's hair, whether or not it's real, is more discussed than Lindsey Graham. And if you don't know who Lindsey Graham is, you basically proved my point. But impacting this is Columbia professor Daniela Engelson, who points out in the Columbia Political Review just yesterday that this has enormous consequences on the presidential race. Because the media is so one-sided, favoring coverage of Trump above anything else, we learn everything about Trump, but absolutely nothing about anyone else. Voters change their opinions because they have access to new information. We get new information all the time on Donald Trump, whether it's making fun of entire groups of people or making outrageous policy ideals. But what ends up happening is people like Rand Paul, Martin O'Malley, they're forgotten, they're marginalized. And ultimately, they have no chance of securing the nomination, while Trump has every opportunity to do so. I guess really the whole point of my speech is I could have done this with just about any political candidate. Hillary Clinton sells her ideals to the highest bidder on Wall Street. And she'd be the first presidential candidate to simultaneously be investigated by the FBI. And then we got Bernie Sanders. Full disclosure, I feel the burn. But he repeats the same lines over and over again, making him look like the crazy socialist uncle of American politics. And quite frankly, that turns off a lot of people. And then we got Marco Rubio, who claims that Obama caused the Great Recession. Except Obama was elected literally months after the Great Recession even started. And then, of course, we got Ted Cruz, who wants to dismantle every single last word of Obamacare. But get this, a few months ago, he signed up for it. In order to foster a strong democracy, we have to foster a strong citizenry. And no matter who you think our political heroes are, no one is above that scrutiny. Everybody must be held accountable, because to create a respectable democracy, our politicians themselves must be respected. They must be held accountable. And that means paying attention to the news, staying vigilant, and above everything else, making fun of the idiots in power. So let's get back on topic. Will Donald Trump really win the presidential nomination for the Republicans? Honestly, I still have my doubts, but after looking at the facts and the data and the values brought in today's discussion, honestly, he has a real chance. That's because of his popularity, his momentum, and how the media treats him and everybody else. But maybe let's say that things don't work out well for Mr. Trump, and maybe he doesn't actually win the nomination. Well, if that's the case, then he could go back to focus on the issues that really matter, like getting the number of that supermodel back in the American pageant, or getting to the bottom of Benghazi, or maybe, just maybe, proving Obama really was born in Kenya. Maybe the next time you catch me giving an extemp, I'll be answering those questions instead.